News Rants, a podcast about news stories that could get a bit ranty. All views expressed on News Rants are those of myself and any contributors. Hello and welcome to another glorious edition of News Rants, the podcast that everybody's talking about. Well, maybe not, but there might be. So, there you go. Right, so this is the second News Rants, and this is about the cost of living crisis here in the United Kingdom, because I'm not too happy with the situation with that either, as you probably can tell, but I don't think anybody is. So, obviously this first reared its ugly head at some point at the beginning of this year, when petrol prices were starting to go up, and then people were getting extortionate electricity and gas bills coming through as the year started to progress. And it's going up. The price cap for electricity and gas, I think it includes gas as well, I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely electricity, has been raised higher, and that's not going to do people's bills any good. So, not great. So people are now paying an absolute fortune for their energy. Yesterday, I spent £77 on petrol to fill my car up. At one point, I remember going into an Esso station and spending about £72, and even that was eye-watering. Yeah, it ain't great. So the cheapest I've seen of petrol around here so far is 155.9 pence per litre at the local Tesco. The diesel, when I checked on that same day, was 170.9, which is absolutely ridiculous. And at his spring statement, if you can even call it that, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, decided it wouldn't be 1 pence per litre, not 3 pence per litre, but 5 pence per litre of fuel duty. Something like that, anyway. He made a big spectacle of taking 5p off fuel duty. 5p per litre off the fuel duty. I mean, that's going to make no difference at all, and it really has not. It needed to be something like 20, 30, 50p to make some kind of difference, because most of what you pay on petrol and diesel is tax. Then there's a 25% green levy or something like that on energy bills to fund Boris Johnson's green dream of wind turbines and solar panels, which he's starting to realise, thanks to the situation in Ukraine, that it's probably not the best thing to be pursuing that and looking for hydrocarbons closer to home. In other words, North Sea oil and gas and fracking, which we should be doing because there's loads of shale gas underneath the ground ready to get out and use and provide us with cheap energy for the next century. So there you go. So it's just a case of appeasing the green nutter, saying yes, it's safe, and the idiots that seem to think that fracking causes earthquakes, which it really doesn't. They don't understand the Richter scale at all. So there you go. So that would hopefully help solve the cost of living crisis. Then there's other bills go up as well. There's your mobile phone bill, that will go up. I'm not sure if that's including this cost of living crisis at all. But those go up every year anyway, because inflation's going up as well, which does not help. So that has a knock-on effect. And then you've got the cost of fuel having a knock-on effect to the cost of food. So the cost of food goes up. It just all goes up because it's all interconnected in some way. So if one price goes up, everything else will start going up with it. There's not a lot you can do. And, well, I don't like it. Rishi Sunak, let's speak of him the better, because I'm not in the best of moods with him right now. If he needs to understand how we're going to get through this, he needs to look at how we, the working classes, actually live and work. Because he's got an absolute ton of money in his bank account. He's rich, and he's married to a rich Indian woman, and she's got tons of money as well. And it just came out in the news the day I recorded the last News Rants, which was actually yesterday, that Mrs. Sunak, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, so I'll just refer to her as Mrs. Sunak, doesn't pay tax on any foreign earnings in this country. In other words, she's non-domicile. But she started to pay the taxes today. But I'm not going to cover that topic because, I don't see the point in covering that topic. Because the other thing that Rishi Sunak has done is obviously put up national insurance contributions. That's what the government's done to, quote-unquote, save the NHS. And do you know why the NHS is in such dire straits and needs all this money? Because it's got greedy middle management and useless roles that do not need to be there. All it needs to be full of is doctors and nurses and other medical professionals. It doesn't need middle management, and that's usually the black hole where all the money goes. So putting up the national insurance contributions is an absolute stupid idea, and especially during the cost of living crisis, which has been slightly exacerbated by the situation in Ukraine. So there's nothing really you can do, because this government will not listen to the working people, and nor will the opposition. They have no interest in the working people either. So, and I wouldn't vote for them anyway. So there you go. So Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson need to get themselves into gear and realise that if this keeps going, this country is going to end up bankrupt. Big time. So, you've got to just keep going and helping the people, not putting up taxes, which is not what the Conservatives do, and not crippling the working classes, and especially families. There's parents out there that are probably going to have to make the decision between heating the house or feeding the kids. I mean, where's the logic in that? There's no logic at all. So, this is why I am absolutely ranty about this. So, my suggestions for the government are as follows. Scrap fuel duty, or at least drop it by 50p per litre. 50p drop of fuel duty. Remove VAT from it entirely, because what is the point? And then that should help with every other thing. That should have a knock-on effect of the rest of the economy. Because the key to this is petrol and diesel prices. They've got to come down in line with the cost of a barrel of crude oil, which has gone below $100 last I checked. Or it did. I'm not sure if that's still the case, so I'll have to keep a check on that. So I want to be able to afford to live. I want to be able to afford to heat my home, run my car, and, well, because I need my car for my job. I'm lucky I actually get them paid the fuel money back for doing the job. But the thing is, I've got to use the car outside of work as well. I can't just use it for work, because I've got to be places, and I'm not getting on a bus, because even that's going to be obscenely expensive now, thanks to the cost of diesel. So, direct message to Rishi Sunak, Chancellor of the Exchequer, and anyone that succeeds him, because I don't know if he's going to lose his job after the news that's just come out. Cut fuel duty by 50p per litre. I know that sounds unrealistic. And just remove VAT on the petrol and scrap the national insurance hike. The NHS shouldn't be in the state it's in. It's only in that state because they were focused on one thing and one thing alone for the last 2 years. That being COVID, which is why there's just a massive backlog, and that's why it needs more money piling into it. It's just a massive money pit. It's not this envy of the world, it's a money pit, and that's contributing to the cost of living crisis. And that ain't great. So, what else? Start fracking, definitely. Ignore the idiots that think it's going to cause Blackpool's promenade to fall into the sea when they go and start drilling for shale gas, because it certainly isn't. And cause the Blackpool Tower to fall over. Yeah, no. Learn the Richter scale. Then, cheap gas, cheap energy, runs our power stations, and heats our homes, and we don't pay anywhere near the amounts that we're paying now. I'm lucky because my electricity and gas tariff is fixed until next year, and that's when it's going to really bite, although my direct debits have just gone up, so. It also doesn't help that some of these energy companies are also owned by foreign entities, for example, EDF. They're owned by the French. EDF stands for Electricity de France. Therefore, the electricity company of France. There you go. I'm not sure what else to say on this. It's just an absolute bloody joke, this cost of living crisis. It should never have happened. I don't want to be scraping at the bottom of my bank account. I don't want to be overdrawn every month. I don't want to be paying higher taxes than I should. I want to enjoy my life. I'm 40 and I've still got plenty of years ahead of me. I don't want the likes of Rishi Sunak, who absolutely doesn't have a clue how working class people live, ruining us. After he made this spring statement, there was a picture of him circulating of him filling up somebody's car. It wasn't his. Somebody's car, because the car in question he would not ever buy. Yeah. And then there was a thing circulating about him trying to use a card machine in a petrol station to pay for I think it was a can of pop or something. And possibly the petrol for that car as well. And he didn't have a clue how to do that. Why do these politicians not seem to understand this? That there are working classes that can't afford any of this absolute rubbish they keep imposing on us. It makes no sense whatsoever. And, I could probably run this country better and, yeah, we wouldn't be all ending up in debt. That's the thing. They're all rich politicians, have all been educated at private school, all gone to university, all inherited or just happened to be born into wealth. And they have absolutely no clue how working class people like me, you, anybody in this country lives. And, the national living wage, I think, is up to £9.50 per hour now. And I don't think that's going to really make any blind bit of difference now because of the increase in the national insurance contributions. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's going to be more and more reports coming out in the news of people who are just going to struggle to heat their homes in the winter and feed themselves or the kids or anything because everything's just going up now and it is getting beyond a joke. Right. So that was the cost of living crisis for News Rants episode 2. And there'll be more News Rants coming very soon because there's plenty in the news to rant about. So, if you are struggling with the cost of living, then write to your local MP, if he's not Rishi Sunak, which unfortunately for me he is. Or she, could be a she. There are female MPs as well. So write to your local MP and see if they can persuade this absolute abhorrent government to do something. If you're lucky, especially if you're lucky enough to have an MP that sits on the back benches. Because the ones on the front benches don't seem to have a clue on both sides of the house. I must say this. They don't. You've got Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, and the rest of them in government, and then you've got on the other side, you've got Keir Starmer, who is not particularly brilliant. Not a brilliant politician, he's a lawyer, not a politician. Chancellor Rishi, who seems to think it's acceptable to call the opposition scum. Less said about that, the better. And I can't think of any others from the Labour bench, because they're all that bad. And then you've also got, up in Scotland, you've got the SNPs. With Nicola Sturgeon in charge. Less said about her, the better. And Ian Blackford as well. Who always amuses me during Prime Minister's questions, because he's either calling for the Prime Minister to resign or he's asking for more money. And he seems to think the Prime Minister is ignoring Scotland, which is a bit odd, considering that the government is the government of the United Kingdom. Yeah, I've got off at a slightly different rant there. Let's not do that. This was supposed to be on the cost of living crisis. But you can understand where I'm coming from. We don't have politicians that seem to know what they're doing. We might have some, but not a lot. So, That was the second news rant. I'm Paul, and I'll catch you in the next one. So until next time.